All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Stakeouts and Shakedowns podcast. We're back for another episode. We've got a really interesting movie today, a movie that I would argue is good, but also absolutely insane. So I'm really glad to have you guys all with us tuning in. It's me, Wes Clifton, your host. I forget almost every time to introduce myself and say my name, and I had literally just said, I hope I don't forget to do that, and almost did. I'm Wes Clifton. I'm the host of this show. I'm a movie nerd who loves movies and is really glad that people have tuned in to listen to me talk to my buddies about them. Speaking of buddies, I've got a guy here that I just knew was perfect to come on and talk about this bonkers film. So let me introduce my guest for today, one of my best friends, Chad Newsom. Hey, buddy, how's it going?
Hey, thanks for having me. Man, I can't tell you how honored I am to be a part of the first and potentially only Steven Seagal episode. I think we were talking earlier that this might be his only buddy cop movie. So unless this podcast expands what it covers, this might be the only one. Unless, I don't know. But either way, I'm very, very happy to be a part of the Steven Seagal episode.
Look, man, I'm glad you're here. I have mixed feelings about this possibly being the only Steven Seagal episode. As you know, I love talking about Steven Seagal, and he, as far as I know, this is his only buddy cop movie. I may be able to stretch the definition a little bit and do a couple down the road. Who knows? He did some movies with DMX. They weren't exactly buddy cop movies, but we might be able to to work him in. But this might be it for a little while. But yeah, I just thought I got to do the Glimmer Man, and I was like, who do I want to come on and do the Glimmer Man? And I was like, yeah, it's Chad. Chad's doing this.
A dude who makes me so happy.
Well, I'm glad. You've come over and watched some bananas movies with me, and I thought this will be a guy who will You got to understand the nuance of loving a film while simultaneously finding it hilariously wacko. That's what this
the
movie
best
is.
Worst movies. Those are I'll tell you, man, that has been some of my favorite movie memories with you, because we have seen a lot of legitimately great movies.
Absolutely.
But I think some of my favorite movie memories of hanging out with you has just been the times that we've just been like, hey, I found one that looks really ridiculous. Let's watch this.
It's the most fun. Killing American Style. I remember watching Killing American Style with you for maybe virtually for my birthday during the pandemic. When everything was virtual, we had a little virtual movie night for my birthday, and we watched Killing American Style. And about halfway through, I was like, man, this seems really familiar. And you were like, yeah, man, we watched it together 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think, that was on an accident, because I don't think I realized that was a rewatch until the movie got going, and I was like, oh yeah, we have seen this.
It took me about 45 minutes to realize we'd watched it before. All right, cool. Well, let's just go ahead and get in some things. Chad, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Yeah, my name's Chad Newsom. I've known Wes for a really long time. I think I'm trying to remember exactly. I can't remember for sure how we met, because I know that we were both in bands way back when that had occasionally played shows together, but I don't think it was until a few years later that we really started hanging out and became friends.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as that, I think my connection to Wes is that we both were kind of part of the North Carolina music scene, crossed paths a number of times, and ended up hanging out. So I'm really into playing music. These days, I work a tech job like a lot of people. I won't really get into that because that's probably not the best podcast material. But yeah, I like good movies. I love going to shows. I feel like this summer in particular, I have gone to a lot of concerts, and it's been a good time. But yeah, I I guess you could say I like being entertained. I like music and movies a lot. So I'm really happy to join Wes on this episode.
Loves music and movies is how I describe myself always too. So I too love to be entertained. Yes, Russell Crowe, I am entertained.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So, well, great, man. That's awesome. I'm glad you're here. Yeah, I met you sort of most people I know, I don't remember exactly when I met them. It's just oh, we knew each other through the music scene and playing gigs and stuff. And so you and I have been roomies. We've been occasional bandmates and bad movie watching buddies. All right, cool. So, Chad, I think that one thing that helps people for podcasts like this to get to know who they're listening to, what are some of your favorite films?
All right. Yeah, I have a hard time putting a finger on a genre I like the best. I like they're just all over the map, but I think my favorite movie is Batman, the 1989 Batman.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I'm not a big superhero movie guy. I just really love that movie. I think nostalgia is doing a lot of heavy lifting. I think that movie got Gotham City just right. I think Michael Keaton is the perfect Bruce Wayne, um, and a good Batman too. Um, but yeah, I also like I love Back to the Future. Um, I like what's funny is I wasn't super into horror movies, but since being friends with Wes, he's introduced me to a lot of horror movies that I've really liked. Certainly latched onto the Friday the 13th series a
Oh
lot
yeah.
because yeah, those are just good fun. Like I love a good slasher movie as well.
Yeah, those are good times, man. I forgot. Yeah, thinking about Chad movies, Batman '89. People, I'm not to tell stories out of school, but I mean, obviously, that's the first movie I think of for you. I believe you now own it on. I don't know if we can say every format, but like quite a few different
Yeah,
formats.
so I've tried that. That is, I'm glad you brought that up because I there was I think I've got it on just about every format. I've got it. At least I've tried to get it on every format. I've got it on VHS, Betamax, Laserdisc, uh, DVD, of course, Blu-ray, 4K Blu-ray. I even bought it on one of those PSP UMD, those little discs. I don't
Okay,
know if I don't have anything to
the
play it
mini
on, but I
disc.
was
Yeah,
just for the sake of being complete, I got it on that as well. I guess I don't have the actual film. I don't have like
yeah,
if
you
somebody was to bring over a
know.
projector, I don't know if I could help with that. But
Yeah, well, we'll keep an eye out, and also for
yeah,
the CED and all that stuff.
yeah.
All right, cool. Well, and also I was going to mention another movie I think of you for is Samurai Cop. I think of you for
Oh
Samurai
yeah,
Cop because of how much you love Samurai Cop.
yeah, that was so. I know earlier in the pod we were talking about just kind of the best worst movies. That's probably my favorite of the best worst movie genre, where it's just like this movie is objectively not great, but it is a really fun ride.
Yeah, that's the Miami connection for me. So, anyway,
Yeah,
I always think about you
yeah.
with Samurai Cop. Cool. So that's awesome. And then the next thing is, do you have a favorite buddy cop film?
I was thinking about this, and I've had a really hard time coming to an answer on this one. And I think my pick, the more I thought about it, and this might be somewhat controversial or I'll say unconventional. I really think Men in Black might be my favorite buddy cop movie.
That's good to know. So I have I'm traditionally not a big Men in Black fan. I don't know how to
Yeah.
say it. I'm not a big Men in Black fan. It
That's
never
that's
struck a
fine.
chord with me,
Yeah,
but people love that movie. It definitely is a buddy cop movie. It definitely is on my list and shows up a lot. It's good to hear you say that because I haven't had anybody
yeah,
else really bring that up. I don't think maybe Matt did last time. But it's not one that I am very knowledgeable about because it just never struck a chord with me. But I
yeah. I
presumably we'll
get
get to
that.
it eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand that because that's why I kind of knew going in. It was not like the typical like Beverly Hills Cop or Lethal Weapon. Like it's a little off from those. But I know I said this with Batman. That nostalgia's doing the heavy lifting, but because I just remember that movie coming out and being excited to go see it and going to the theaters and just not at all being disappointed. But there's a few things about that movie that I really like that I don't think are super common these days. Is it had a song that like
Yeah,
was made for the movie that was
yeah,
in the movie. The music video was about. It was like the complete package. I love when a movie has a song that is like that is this movie's song. I also love that. Like I love a movie that'll introduce a cool and fun concept for Men in Black. For me, that would be like the flashy thing, the neuralizer.
oh
You
yeah,
you press the button and it erases the person's memory for however long, and that is used
yeah.
as a plot device throughout the movie. But there's also some funny situations that's used in. So I don't know. I feel like there's just a lot about that movie where. Even now, like I loved it as a kid, but even now, like if it comes on, I still just have a great time watching it.
Yeah, and it's a good movie. I can recognize that. It just somehow when I was younger, it just didn't strike me. You're talking about the flashy thing that
Yeah,
wipes their memory. It's
yeah,
interesting because that's another thing that's become like a cultural touchstone. Like
yeah,
even outside of those films, like that is sort of the way that our society now describes like somebody's memory being wiped. It's like, oh
yeah,
yeah, the flashy thing from Men in Black.
yeah,
Yeah, cool. Well, I think that's a great choice, and you don't have to worry about it not being one of the ones like you were saying because one thing I really want to do with this podcast is kind of open people up to other, buddy cop films. And obviously, Men in
yeah,
Black was a big film, but maybe they wouldn't think about that. I've had some people message me like, "Oh yeah, after listening to the pod, I listened to this, I watched this movie or watched this movie," and I love that. Like people
yeah,
finding out about new films, and so that's one reason why I kind of like, other than 48 Hours, so far I've kind of not done any of the really big ones. I need to eventually, I know that, but I just find the
yeah,
sort of smaller ones. Very interesting. So it's fine. And it's a good choice.
yeah.
Final question before we move into the film. Have you seen anything recently. Doesn't have to be a recent release, but anything recently that you would recommend for listeners.
Yeah. I don't know if can we talk about TV shows too? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
sure, man. We can
Okay.
do whatever we want.
Oh,
We
okay.
have great
Cool.
freedom.
We just so yeah, that's true. I guess there aren't limits on this. We're not the sponsors aren't going to drop us. I guess. The last night we started watching that Ed Gein series on
Oh,
Netflix.
okay,
It
cool.
is not for the faint of heart, but it is
Yeah,
really interesting.
Charlie Hunnam,
Um,
is that who's in that?
I couldn't tell you, man. But he does a great job. Like the guy that plays Ed Gein,
Yeah.
the voice he uses is a little unexpected, I guess, at first. But the way that he acts in that, he does a great job expressing emotion, even while kind of staying in that sort of voice. But it's really cool. And I remember like going into it, and I know you and I have talked about. It's going to make us sound like some degenerates, but I know you and I have talked about Ed Gein before,
Oh,
just
yeah.
outside of just any sort of series about him, and we've talked about
Yeah.
how he's the inspiration for Psycho, and they touch on that. I don't want to spoil anything for the listeners, but that gets kind of woven into the plot as well. It is Monster. I believe it's the same series that Netflix used to cover Jeffrey Dahmer. But yeah, that was
Oh,
great.
cool.
But yeah, so I'm only 2 episodes in. Looking forward to seeing the rest of it. But yeah, it was it's really well done. Like I said, not for the faint of heart. Definitely, it's pretty gruesome, but it's really interesting.
Confirmed that it is Charlie Hunnam, who was in Sons of Anarchy, Green Street Hooligans, and movies like
Okay.
that. So it's funny when you talk about us talking about Ed Gein. The primary reason for that is because it's like you mentioned earlier. I'm still a big horror fan, but there was a time in my life that I was like a complete horror head, and so
Yeah,
like Ed Gein's interesting because, like you said, he's not only the inspiration behind Psycho, he's also the inspiration behind Texas Chainsaw Massacre
that's
and
right. Yeah,
Buffalo Bill. Is that the character from Silence of the Lambs?
yeah, yeah.
So he pops, his influence looms large over
Right.
films. Yeah, that's interesting, man. I've been curious about that because I like Charlie Hunnam as an actor, and so I'm interested in that. So I somehow in my mind it was a movie. I didn't know it was a show.
Yeah, I wasn't sure till we like I'd seen I'd seen it advertised, and then we went to start it, and it was episode one, and so I had the same. It wasn't until we like clicked on it in Netflix that I was like, oh, I guess this is a show. And but
Yeah.
yeah, still great. I guess just to stick with at least to give you a movie answer, I really loved Sinners this year. Like
Okay.
I've loved that movie. That was so far on my current Letterboxd top movies of 2025. That one's at the top now. I will say I am way behind. There's a lot of movies that have come out this year that I know
Yeah.
are good movies that I haven't seen. And I tell you, like I'm really bad about putting movies off until like the fall because like in the summer, I don't really go see a lot of movies in the summer, and I know the summer is a big movie season. But I tend to be the type of person I don't know why this is. I didn't even realize this about myself until I started keeping lists on Letterboxd. That it seems to be typical for me that once the weather cools down, that's when I want to start staying in and putting on movies, and that's when that's when I'll usually catch up on the year's movies.
Yeah, man. I understand that. I get that. It's funny. So the Sinners makes another appearance on this podcast, and another time when I have to say I still haven't seen it. Most people who come on this podcast so far have talked about Sinners and how good it was, and I still haven't seen it. I do need to catch up on it soon. I guess it's October.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll see it in October. Who knows?
Oh,
Maybe I
it's a
won't.
good October movie. I'll tell you that.
So yeah. So I'll probably need to catch up on that.
One movie that I'm pretty sure that you've seen that I was hoping I would see by this point because I knew there was going to be this part of the podcast where we were talking about recent movies. Is Weapons. I keep
Oh
hearing that
yeah.
it's amazing.
So
I
good.
know that it's out where I can stream it now.
Yeah.
I
So
can
good.
rent it. And I've been putting it off because and I'll be honest, anytime this week that I've gotten the chance to like have a little bit of screen time, it's been all about the Glimmer Man.
Love that. Love that. Yeah, Weapons is great, man. I really loved Barbarian. Barbarian took me by surprise when I
I
saw it in the
loved
theater.
Barbarian.
Like I went in, and that's what I love about it is I went in kind of not really knowing what to expect, and even watching the trailer doesn't really set you up to know what to expect. And that movie took me on a journey, and I
Yeah.
just loved it. So when I found out, that Weapons was the same director, who I later found out plays Abraham Lincoln in that famous Kids in the Hall.
Yeah.
No, Why does Kid You Know? Why does Kid You Know?
What is yeah,
Sketch, the Abraham
oh
Lincoln where he's heckling.
yeah.
Like
Oh, I
it's
love that sketch.
he's the director is that guy. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that. But yeah, Weapons also amazing. I think I did slightly prefer Barbarian, but Weapons
Yeah.
is just so good. It's
Cool.
I think I've got it sitting in my top spot for the year
Oh, I can't wait,
on
man.
Letterboxd. real good.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So for me, I'll just say real quickly, I really, really enjoyed the Naked Gun, the new Naked Gun movie. It just feels like an old school spoof from my childhood. It feels like the early Naked Gun movies, the kind of Mel Brooks thing that was popular, Hot
Yeah.
Shots. It just was that kind of humor, and I loved it. Liam Neeson is great in, I guess, is this his first turn in comedy? I don't know. He's so funny to me.
Yeah.
Pamela Anderson was great in it. Just a really funny movie that I really enjoyed.
Man, two things about that movie. One, it's another movie that's on my to-do list. I haven't seen it yet, and I've heard nothing but good things. Two, I'm so happy to hear that there is like kind of a shtick comedy movie out there that came out
Yeah.
this year. And when you mentioned favorite movies, one that I should have mentioned was Austin Powers. I love
Oh,
all
yeah.
of those movies because I feel like those were, I mean, some of the, I'm sure there have been some between then and now, but it seemed like those were the last big, like kind of shtick comedy movies where it was just, I don't know any other way to put it, just the kind of like funny situations and where they're kind of like mocking sort of, well, I mean, not even mocking. It seems like it's done with respect, but they're kind of joking on the kind of James Bond sort of spy
Yeah,
movies, which
spoofs. It's
I
just
also
spoofs.
love.
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah. You have to almost approach it with love, to make fun
Yeah.
of something successfully. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. And the other movie I want to reference, even though I didn't see it recently, I saw it way earlier this year, but I want to reference Jason Statham's The Working Man, just because when I watched it, I was like, this kind of over the top, hilariously ridiculous action movie reminds me of Steven Seagal. And so since we were
Yeah.
watching Steven Seagal movie this time, I was like, I got to plug The Working Man. It came out this year. And it's just like, if you like movies like The Glimmer Man, you need to make sure to check out The Working Man
It's
because
a
it is
fun ride, man.
bananas. Yeah.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because I was worried that we'd go back and forth and only mention movies that the other one hasn't seen. We've both seen The Working
Yeah.
Man.
Well, good. We're doing our great
Or
job.
is it The Working Man or A Working Man?
I think it's
The Working.
well, okay. Good question. This is exciting podcasting. Let's
Yeah.
find out.
Well,
It's
that's
A
okay.
Working Man. You're
A
correct. It's
Working.
A
Okay.
Working Man. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. That man. I don't want to get too far down there, but man, the stepfather, is it the stepfather or the father-in-law? I can't remember the guy that's like
Oh, right. He's like
he's like taking care of the guy's daughter when he's
yeah,
not
yeah,
around.
yeah.
It's I
I
can't
think it's
remember
his
whether it's his ex-father-in-law
father-in-law.
or something.
Yeah.
That guy's ridiculous in all the right
Yes.
ways.
Absolutely.
It's
The whole
hilarious.
movie. It was just
Yeah.
it was like Jason Statham channeling like early career or maybe mid 90s career Steven Seagal. I don't
Yeah.
know. I loved it. Well, that's awesome, man. Okay, cool. So we are going to take just a brief break and we're going to come back on the other side of the break and we're going to talk about The Glimmer Man.
To those he pursued, he was known only as the Glimmer Man. They'd see nothing but shadows. Then a glimmer. Then he's always followed his own path and worked alone until now.
Mr. Lovebeads, you're gonna have to seek higher enlightenment somewhere else.
They don't see eye to eye.
This guy is weird. Drop the gun. I can't fight. This is not the time I want to hear that. I got soul! For a minute there, I forgot you told me you can't fight. It's against my religion, I'm a Buddhist. And I'm super bad.
They use different methods.
Once a way should cry, because like it cleanses the soul. If I need a cleansing, I have a bran muffin.
But on this case,
Pray that we hurry up and find this killer so I don't have to be with your crazy ass much longer.
opposites do attract.
He's a little country. I'm a little bit rock and roll. Why don't we just get you some red boots and a cape and you can fly around the city and stop all the crime?
Take your little sensitive ponytail and your little sissy beads and get out of here.
Warner Brothers presents Steven
I
Seagal,
have something that'll completely clear up that bruise on your forehead. What bruise? That bruise.
Keenan Ivory Wayans,
請飲茶，我出氣好苦㗎。
Do you know I'm black? You learn well, grasshopper.
the Glimmer Man.
All right, we are back, and tonight we are talking about the 1996 action extravaganza, The Glimmer Man, starring Steven Seagal and Keenan Ivory Wayans. This movie is bananas, in my opinion. Like it's just
It is.
it is a bonkers movie.
Yeah, if you want, we'll go ahead and I pulled the summary from Apple because I rented this from or actually no, I should say let me give credit where credit's due. I bought this movie from iTunes.
Love that.
Yeah,
I love that. I have had it on DVD for a while. My DVD doesn't have a description because it's one of those like Seagal 4-packs. So I'm glad you came
cool.
equipped with the description.
Nice. Okay, well, yeah. So this is the description as it appeared on Apple. Action star Steven Seagal stars as a man who, when he used to work for the government, was called the Glimmer Man. Actually, I'm going to pause right there because as I was watching the movie, I was like, "Why is this called the Glimmer Man?"
Yeah,
it's very unclear.
Don't worry, they'll let you know
But it's like way later in the movie. We'll get there. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. So, okay, here's the rest of the description: the Glimmer Man, an agent who was dispatched on one of the riskiest covert assignments that the United States was never officially involved in, but which were silently, swiftly handled. This plot description, I should have read this before reading it aloud.
Yeah.
It is as confusing as the movie.
Perfect.
Now a New York police detective, he has abandoned his former occupation and identity, but when a serial killer plunges L.A. into terror, the LAPD is forced to summon the one man whose understanding of the criminal mind is unrivaled, the Glimmer Man, paired with seasoned local homicide detective Keenan Ivory Wayans. The two quickly discover that theirs is not a match made in heaven. Now, I'll say this right off the bat. That description had the phrase the Glimmer Man in it more than the movie had the phrase the Glimmer Man in it.
That's correct. Yeah. So, honestly, that is a really... was that the end of the plot description?
Yeah, that was it.
That's a really wonderful Steven Seagal plot description. Like that sounds a lot. You're like, yep, Steven Seagal's in this. So before we get more into that, I'm gonna throw out the calmer movie facts about this movie, and then we can get into talking about that bonkers plot. So the director for this movie was John Gray. It was written by Kevin Broadbent. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. That could be one of those Irish type names. But it was produced by Julius R. Nasso and, you guessed it, Steven Seagal.
Yes.
The score was done by Trevor Rabin. It stars Steven Seagal, Keenan Ivory Wayans, Stephen Tobolowsky, Bob Gunton, Richard Gant, Brian Cox, Nikki Cox, who I had a very small role, but I threw in only because she played on that show Unhappily Ever After, that sitcom in the 90s, and teenage me had a big crush on her. So seeing her in this, I was like, oh, okay, I know who she is. And then it was released on October the 4th, 1996. So the same year, I think maybe a little later in the year as Bulletproof, which we covered on a previous episode. Its budget was $45 million, and its box office worldwide was $41.8 million. So it didn't quite make back its budget at the box office, and that's worldwide. In the US and Canada, it was about half that. It was a little over 20 million at the box office. So this was a box office flop. This was at that part of Seagal's career where he was beginning to flop at the box office, because he comes straight out the gate.
Yeah,
just a box office madman. I mean, like he comes straight out the gate as like a big, marquee star making tons of money in his early movies. But by this point, he's had some setbacks and he's not doing as well. And then the Rotten Tomatoes, it's got 11% from critics and 38% from audience scores on Rotten Tomatoes. So this movie is not beloved by all, but it is beloved by me. So
the audience has only liked it slightly better than the critics, still not above the 50% margin.
Oh yeah, not great. And I feel like it's because you have to, if you don't get this movie, you don't get it, and it's going to be hard to explain it to you.
The critic score makes total sense.
Oh, absolutely.
Critically, I guess I should say, objectively, this movie is not great, but but like a lot of the movies that you and I love, it is a fun ride.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a really fun ride. I love the bananasness of it. Bananasness?
Yeah.
Okay, that
New
works.
word.
Yeah, people know what I'm talking about. Yeah, sure, why not? But I really think it's just cuckoo bananas, and I love that. You had read that plot description. That is a perfect Seagal plot description. Yeah. He was assigned to the most covert missions that the U.S. ever did, but it was under wraps, and you couldn't know about him because he's a top secret weapon for the government. But don't worry, now he's a cop, and like it's just so great. At one point, he says a line where he's like, "Oh shoot, I wrote it down. I'm gonna have to like flip through my little notes here because I wouldn't say it right." He's like, because it was like, I ain't always been a cop. There it is. Yeah. I ain't always been a cop. That's like, to me, a perfect Seagal line.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of like when he's like, in Under Siege when he plays a cook, but of course his background is like he was in special operations or whatever before he got busted down by the brass and became the cook. And at one point he's like, I'm just a cook. And later on she's like, you're just a cook. And he's like, I also cook. Like, it's just, it's so
Steven
funny.
Seagal, I swear, man, he loves roles where he has a mysterious background.
Oh, yeah.
And for some reason is just good at everything.
Yes, he plays that role in every film, at least in like his golden period. Like, I'll confess that once you get past Fire Down Below, my Steven Seagal watching is more sparse. I've seen several of his direct-to-video garbage years.
That's awesome.
But I really am a huge fan of like his box office, the theater years, his kind of golden period, starting with Above the Law in like 88, I guess. He comes out the gate with 5. I mean, they're cheesy, which is what I love, but they're incredible if you love cheesy action movies. Above the Law, my favorite, which is Hard to Kill, Marked for Death, Out for Justice, and Under Siege.
Mm-hmm.
And those are huge successes. The hubris gets to him, and he directs a movie called On Deadly Ground. Have you seen On Deadly Ground?
I have not. That's on my to-do list because there's a lot of trivia that I've come across about that because I think that's the one where he really takes a strong stance on the environment.
Absolutely.
Which is admirable. It doesn't I don't think it super lines up with a lot of his viewpoints later on, but it's interesting,
His viewpoints seem to me to be all over the place because I think sometimes he still speaks out for environmentalism, but then a lot of the other stances he takes, you're like, wait, what? So On Deadly Ground it's just in my opinion, it's an awesome, like ridiculously silly Seagal role. He's directing himself. It does end with him giving this speech to like Congress, which is all about environmentalism. Apparently that speech and other things about the movie didn't go over super well with audiences. And so that movie kind of starts his downward trend. He does another movie called Under Siege 2. Dark Territory, I think, or Dark Passage, Dark Territory. I'm getting it mixed up with a Bogart movie. But anyways...
On Deadly Ground, was that near the time he hosted SNL? Or it was
I think that was during Out for Justice. I think that was when he was still a big name when he did SNL and was
because there was one skit that he did in that. I mean, there's a whole. If you look up on YouTube Steven Seagal SNL, just hearing everybody's takes on their experience working with him it's a ride. Yeah. But there is one skit where it's like it's not funny, and I can't really even tell whether it's intended to be funny. Where he just goes into a boardroom and beats up like a bunch of oil execs because he's like he wants that to be his stance on the environment. Just that's why I asked if on Deadly Ground was around that same time.
He is famously. One of the worst hosts in the history of Saturday Night Live. And I, according to everybody's opinions. And so I was just obsessed with trying to track down that episode. It's hard to find because obviously it's the episode they don't want you to see. But like I did finally track it down somewhere on the internet and watched it. And it's a slog because it's like you said, because the problem with Steven Seagal. So like, okay, let me put out a spoiler alert for the audience who's listening. Yes, we're going to talk about the Glimmer Man, but a lot of it is going to have to be Seagal talk. I mean, how else could you do it? So like,
he's such a unique guy.
What a character. So anyways, he's not good at laughing at himself. He's not good at self-deprecating humor. That's the reason why I think a person like a Jean-Claude Van Damme, who once again has a huge ego, I'm not trying to say, but Jean-Claude Van Damme, at least over time, has learned how to sort of laugh at himself and be like, this is crazy a little. Seagal cannot do that. Seagal doesn't seem to have any sense of humor about himself. And so when he's on SNL, like every sketch is him like the humor is like, and then I beat this guy up. Yeah. And then I beat this guy up. Like, I'm pretty sure there's a Van Down by the River. Why can't I think of that? Matt Foley. Matt Foley.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's a Matt Foley sketch and he's just coming in and he's like the dad or something. And he's like threatening to beat everybody up. It was just a really hard watch.
Yeah, that was during the days of Hans and Franz, and they he was incensed that there would even be a sketch where there might be somebody a little stronger than him. I mean, it's what is it, Dana Carvey and Kevin Nealon that play these guys? It's like nobody watching it thinks they are muscle men. It's a comedy sketch,
Yeah, but he wouldn't have it. Yeah, right. Yeah. And like, it's like, because he doesn't understand, like, that's the joke. Yeah. Anyways, like, it was really bad. So he hubris got to him.
Yeah.
Also, I found out that he only apparently he agreed to do the role in Executive Decision, which I don't want to spoil anything for Executive Decision, but let's just say that there are some things about that movie that make it not exactly the type of role you'd expect Seagal to be in. And if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Probably, let's just say. Spoiler alert for the movie. All right, right now, he's only in about half of Executive Decision. So
Okay.
he agreed to do it because he went so over budget on Deadly Ground. Is why he agreed to do that. Man, so I need to say that Steven Seagal is a person. He's sort of like Danzig for me, where like
Yeah.
I both find him outrageously hilarious, unintentionally so.
Right.
I also find him a little tragic in a lot of ways. If you look into his
Mhm.
life, like he's like you're like, ugh. There's some things where you're like, ugh, okay, and then, but I'm legitimately a fan of his output.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I am. I'd laugh about these movies, but like I love the early Steven Seagal movies. I love them so much.
Yeah.
This movie included, but especially like Hard to Kill, which I know I've mentioned before, but it's just so good. And Marked for Death and all those movies. I even love Under Siege too.
Yeah.
Steven Seagal, man.
Yeah. He's. I mean, great output, as you've said. Especially if you're a fan of like just movies that are just a fun ride, regardless of quality. It's great. His output's awesome.
And like, so to me, I wrote down in my notes that this movie is quote unquote peak Seagal. And what I mean by that, I don't mean like peak of his career, because obviously that came earlier. That was Under Siege. But it's peak like Seagal becoming a weird dude, like just a weird dude. From the moment he comes on the screen, I watched this with my girlfriend a while back, and she was like, as soon as he came on the screen, she was like, "What?" Because he's wearing like these beads and like this like Chinese looking suit, and like he has the ponytail, and he's in this office, and he just looks like a fish out of water. So the movie starts off with this grotesque credit sequence.
Oh my god, yeah, it was. So yeah, I go in. This is funny because a lot of these buddy cop movies, they're a fun ride, they're a fun time, and this one is too. But having never seen this movie before, I put this movie on, and yeah, you're right. It's like there's a lot of these like, oh, this is really going to be intense. There's a lot of gruesome crime scenes right from the outset, just in the intro of the movie.
Oh, hey, that reminds me. That reminds me. You just said when you saw it for the first time. We talked about this earlier, but I just real quickly, because I thought your answer was really funny. What's your history with this movie? When did you seen it? When was the first time you saw it? What's your history here?
So my history with this movie was Wes saying, "Hey, I'd like to have you on an episode of the podcast for Glimmer Man," and that's when I watched it for the first time. And yeah, it was like we've been saying all along. It's a really fun ride. And I think over the past few weeks, I've seen this movie. I'd say I'd be comfortable saying 3 times, because there's been a lot of times that I've watched it in piecemeal. But there's also been a couple times that I've just been like, I can't think of anything else to put on. I'll just watch part of the Glimmer Man. You know?
I love that. I said, I'll first watch this movie a few years ago. I was going through a Seagal deep dive, and like several years ago, I guess. But I loved it. But I said, by this point, I've probably seen it 4, maybe 5 times.
Yeah.
I love that you've already seen it 3 times.
Yeah.
So great. It'll really get its hooks in you, or
Yeah.
it won't. So it starts off with this really grotesque credit sequence. Now, in the book Seagology by Verne, that's right, there's a whole book about studying Seagal's films as like kind of sort of not really an academic topic, but so in
Glad that
Seagology by
exists. That's awesome.
it's awesome. So in Seagology by Verne, he is not a big fan of this film, but he suggests that he thinks the credit sequence and several other things about this movie were probably done to kind of play off the success of David Fincher's Seven, which had come out the year before. So kind of the serial killer Catholic iconography kind of stuff. He was saying that he thinks this credit sequence and a few other things were possibly put into the film to kind of play on the previous success of Seven.
Just because you mentioned that this came out after Seven.
Yeah.
I just watched it, not really knowing anything about it the first time. After watching it, I looked up like the Wikipedia, looked up some facts about it. I was surprised to see that this came out in 96.
Yeah.
I really thought, like, I don't know if it was the styling. Maybe it's because they're driving around this old looking Crown Vic. I mean, maybe that's what it was, but I totally thought this was like late 80s, early 90s. Had to be. But
Yeah.
but you're right, Seagal. Seagal should have been a giveaway because he had become a lot more Seagal. You mentioned
Yeah.
you mentioned how he was dressed. One thing I was wondering is Seagal at all involved in the wardrobe department of this movie? Because
It
it looks
has
like
to be.
it looks like he's just wearing stuff from his own closet. It doesn't look like he went
Yeah.
to wardrobe at all. It's
Yeah,
just
well, I guess that's what I mean. Is like
it's
he has to
just-
be like, I'm wearing this.
yeah.
Like I'm
And
wearing
he's
this
like, all
now.
right, man, cool.
Like so we see all this and we see the gross, and then it starts, and then we see like one of the Family Man murders. So this
Yeah.
movie, like we said, I think you said in your plot description, it kind of like, it's sort of about a serial killer called the Family Man, and Keenan Ivory Wayans is a cop named Campbell. Steven Seagal is a cop slash super soldier named Cole, and they're going after the Family Man killer who kills whole families and poses them in like Catholic, crucifixion type poses. And so we see like this guy do a shooting, and then it comes into the police office. Keenan Ivory Wayans comes in. He's Detective Campbell. It's kind of this whole like, hey, it's a cop movie, and they're all like, oh, here he is, Campbell, blah blah blah. And at one point, one of them says, here he comes, Chicken Noodle Campbell.
Yeah.
And I wrote that
The
down because I was
banter.
like, I wrote that down because I was like, Chicken Noodle Campbell. I was like, are we going to hear a story about him being Chicken Noodle Campbell? We don't.
Yeah.
And so then when I went back through my notes, I was like, I guess that's just because like Campbell's soup.
I think so. Yeah, I think that that's what I took from it too. Because there's the banter. I guess they wanted to make these guys look like, oh, he's buddies with other people at the department.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie
Noodle
wastes
Campbell.
no time at the beginning. Like
Yeah.
Cole's there waiting for him in his office. There's
Waiting
no
in
like
his office.
pre-roll of these guys living separate lives before they've come together.
And that's where I'm going with this. So he goes through this relatively normal movie police station. He gets to his office, and there's this guy sitting at his desk, and he's wearing like these, like, I don't know enough about it to say whether they're Tibetan prayer beads or whatever. I know that Steven Seagal was involved in Tibetan Buddhism, so I'm assuming that's what they are. Like a Chinese suit. He's got his ponytail. He looks like late stage Seagal, and it's just from the moment you see him, you're just like, what is happening? And obviously, Keenan Ivory Wayans has the same reaction as we, the audience, do to him being there.
And that is where my question about did he even go through wardrobe comes through, because like this looks like what I would imagine Steven Seagal looks like when he just gets out of his car.
Yeah,
Like,
if he, at least the suit. I don't know about the beads anymore. Maybe at the time, if you see interviews with Steven Seagal, he is wearing that same kind of suit. Always,
every time. Yeah,
always. And so I have a question, and maybe we should get farther into the movie before I ask this question. But why not just ask it straight out the gate?
fire away.
Do you think? Does Steven Seagal know that he's playing a weirdo? Like, does he know that?
So I think he does, but I don't think he thinks of it as the same kind of weirdo that we think it is.
Yeah.
Like in his mind, he's like, I'm this mysterious guy, and I'm dressed in this like mysterious clothing, and people are like looking at me like, who's that guy? And then little by little, they're going to find out that I'm an expert at everything. You know? But really, we're looking at him as like, that guy is weird. Like,
He is weird.
Yeah.
Like from the jump, he's so weird. And like he's in the car with Keenan Ivory Wayans, and he's asking him all these questions, and like he throws out all, like at different points he throws out all these weird lines, and I'm like, this movie is playing on the comedy of how weird Steven Seagal is. But I was like, does Seagal know that? Because he's basically playing like a slightly, well, I don't know, an extremely exaggerated version of himself. Even though if you hear him tell his own background story, it's not quite as exaggerated. At least not in his mind, because he has exaggerated his own background story, which is a whole other thing. But I just, like, the whole time I kept thinking, is he, I don't think he's making fun of himself. And I think it's like you said, I think he thinks that he is, I don't know if he would use the term weirdo. I think he thinks that he is strange to others and mysterious to others in a way that is awesome.
Yeah, like strange and intriguing, I would think is what he's thinks of himself.
Yeah, he's not like, whereas we are Keenan Ivory Wayans, and we're like, what? Like, what are you doing? What is this?
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Well, okay, so after they meet each other, they get in the car. They're in the car. Which, by the way, they get in the car, and he's or wait, no, it's not in the car. I'm getting ahead of myself. They get in the car, and they get a call for a suicide.
That's after they're leaving the crime scene. I think they're right.
Oh, they go to the crime scene.
They go to the crime scene first, right?
They do. I'm sorry. Yeah, Got to had those scenes out of order in my mind, but yeah. So when they're at that first crime scene, it goes from he's got this already ridiculous looking getup, but at that first crime scene, he's got this jacket that has reflective gold dragons all over it.
Oh yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah, that has to be his too, right?
yeah, it has to be. That's what I'm saying. Is it's like there's no way this movie was just like, okay, we need a lot of kung fu looking dragon gear for this cop. It's like, no, it's like that's just his. That's from his closet. It has to be.
It has to be. Yeah. So then they go to it's always funny. Like I had a part in my notes where I was like, not to like get too far behind the scenes, where I was like, what are our favorite scenes? But I feel like we're probably gonna have to just talk about them as we go through. So you had mentioned one of the ones that I think is particularly interesting, which is it's really like a hostage situation.
Right. But yeah, they get a call for like, hey, there's somebody who's threatening suicide, and Cole accepts the call. And Campbell is saying, "Hey, no, we're homicide. We don't do that." And I can't remember exactly what he says. But you know what's funny about this scene, and a lot of his interactions with Keenan Ivory Wayans, is that Seagal a lot of times comes off as this like, "No, we got to care for everybody. We got to do this." And there's some scenes where he's jokey with him, and I don't know. It almost I know that like I don't know if you're a big enough Simpsons fan to remember this scene, but there is this scene with groundskeeper Willie and Principal Skinner where they're trying to get some information out of Lisa, and they're like, let's take the good cop bad cop approach, but they keep forgetting who's supposed to be the good cop and who's supposed to be the bad cop. And it really reminds me of that, because there's a lot of times where like, wait, does Steven Seagal think he's the comic relief and the other guy's supposed to be the serious cop?
Oh, I couldn't figure that out at all.
Yeah.
The whole movie, I couldn't figure that out at all. I was like, wait, who is the straight man in this? Like, who is the straight man?
Yeah, because most buddy cop movies, there's like the more old school guy, and there's like the new guy. There's the guy that's more traditional. There's the guy that's like doing things his own way,
I think on the whole, Steven Seagal fulfills the rogue cop who plays by his own rules.
Yeah, for sure.
He might not be the wisecracker, which strangely is Keenan Ivory Wayans, but also sometimes Seagal. I don't know. Like it's a weird dynamic. It's a very weird dynamic.
When he cracks jokes, I don't want to get too far, because like there's more, that we could cover as we get through the plot where he does crack a few jokes.
Oh yeah.
Do you think? And this is maybe it's because Steven Seagal has a producer credit. He clearly has some influence on the direction of the movie. Do you think he got paired up with Keenan Ivory Wayans, who's known for comedy, and just, in his own Steven Seagal brain just thinks like, oh, well, I'm as funny as that guy.
I definitely think that.
Yeah.
I definitely think that. Yeah, for sure. I think that. Like, I think that Steven Seagal probably thought, you know what? I don't want him to be the jokester in this movie because I'm really funny. I'm not only really tough, but I'm really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for sure. Like, I think that's definitely
okay.
what happened. For sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they go to this. I wanted you to talk about the school scene because you had the details worked out a little bit. And I remember the first time I watched this movie, I was like, this is crazy. Already this is crazy.
It is so crazy. And this is only like 5 minutes in the movie. They get a call for the suicide. Like we said, Cole's like, hey, let's accept the call. We got to care about what was the line? We got to care about the dead, the might be dead, the might be dying. He has a whole thing.
The whole thing.
Yeah. So they get called for it. He gets called to a school, and there's this kid named Johnny. He's in his classroom. He's got a gun, has the gun on himself. He's freaking out. He points it at the classroom for a little bit, back on himself. He's going nuts. Steven Seagal, give me a couple of cell phones right away. What's he gonna do? So his voice comes over the intercom. He's trying to negotiate with Johnny over the intercom. And they, through a series of shots, they see like, oh, he's on the cell phone. The other cell phone's at the intercom, so that he can trick Johnny into thinking that he's in, I guess, the office, wherever their intercom is. And he says, Johnny, come to the window. Like, come look at me. Come to the window. And then he's trying to negotiate with him. Johnny starts to believe him, and then he just comes in gun drawn and tells Johnny, I don't want to shoot you, and you don't want to be dead.
Yep. It's a great line.
And I mean, this is a very entertaining scene and a wildly irresponsible hostage negotiation. And Johnny says, I can't go back with him, foreshadowing something that may happen later on. As somewhere in the negotiation, I forget exactly when Steven Seagal, or I should say Cole, I'll try and stick with their character names to stay in the story. There's at some point Cole sees, I guess, a break in the conversation or something, lunges at Johnny, takes him through the window, of the
Another window.
building next door,
Yeah.
and they land. Also, we didn't say this, but Johnny's girlfriend's in the class too. They land. The girlfriend we hear in the background saying, "I love you, Johnny."
I love you, Johnny.
Johnny says, "I love you too." Seagal says, "I love you too."
Yep. So my question is this: is that room okay? So you said he has the two cell phones, which is true, and it makes his voice come out through the intercom, which is also true. But he doesn't say, "I'm in the principal's office. I'm coming through the intercom." He says, "Come to the window and look at me." So is he pretending he's standing outside with a megaphone, but he's coming through, or is that room across the way that they jump into? Is that the office?
I didn't think about the megaphone angle. I just thought,
Because I was like, wait, why is he saying his voice is coming through the intercom? Why is he saying, "Come to the window and look at me"?
I'm just assuming that this is a school that has multiple buildings. That's how I took it, because I was like, surely this kid knows where sound is coming from. You know?
Yeah, but I mean, like, I don't know. It was just confusing to me because I was like, okay, because
you can't make
Seagal's outside
assumptions
the
about
classroom.
characters' perceived reality.
Seagal's outside the classroom.
Yeah.
His voice is coming through the intercom.
Yeah.
There's a window beside the kid, and Seagal's like, "Come look at me through the window." I just was very confused by if his voice was coming out through the intercom. I don't know. I'm putting too much thought into it, I guess. But like, I'm like, is that room that they end up jumping into? Maybe that's the office, and so he would be looking at him through those windows. I don't know. Who knows?
I'm just assuming the office must have just been in the building next door. And maybe
I
that's
guess
why
so.
he thought that. But
Yeah, I guess so. So yeah, that's all insano. And then afterwards, we find out that Johnny's dad, whose name I can't remember right now,
Frank Deverell.
Thank you, Frank Deverell. I knew it was
and he
Deverell.
says it's his stepson, but there's a couple scenes
right,
where he
stepson.
refers to him as his father.
Yeah, I think there was probably confusion about that in the writing.
Dad/stepdad, who knows?
Yeah, but it's a stepdad. Yeah, you're right. And so Frank Deverell, he's like a rich guy, and he comes up and he's like very thankful of Seagal, and Seagal blows it off because he don't need this rich guy's approval. He does it for what is righteous and virtuous.
Yeah.
But so then we are introduced in the next scene. Seagal's writing up the stuff about this, and we're introduced to Donald, who is the head of Deverell's security. He comes in and says he's the head of security, and he's basically trying to talk Seagal into being like, "Hey, Frank's a really important guy, and he'll really appreciate it if you will kind of say that his son is insane so we can get him a lighter sentence and get him sentenced to a sanitarium." That's what he says, get him sentenced to. He needs treatment, not prison. And Seagal basically blows him off and says one of the most Seagal lines you're going to hear in this movie when they have he's like, blows him off, and he says, "Now get your ugly white ass out of here and don't come back."
Yes. I love that line. And I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, the standards for racial commentary are always changing. But when I see one white dude call another white dude white in the middle of an insult, it's just like, it's hilarious to me.
Well, it's a very Seagal thing to say too. Like,
man. So funny thing about the character Donald. And I didn't notice this until my second watch, because the first watch through, I was jotting down notes, and I didn't know the guy's name. Yeah, and I was like Deverell's associate, Deverell's friend. I don't know who this guy is. I guess, or his employee, I guess, that was revealed in that scene. So on either the second or third watch, I was just like, when do we actually know this guy's name? And so up until the point in the movie we're talking about right now, we still don't know this guy's name. This is just a guy that works for Frank Deverell, which isn't totally weird yet, but the more this movie goes on, it is wild how late in the movie that we finally find out that this guy's name is Donald. And it's not like he's like this super villain, mysterious character that like his name is kept a secret for the purpose of the plot. It's just that, like, I feel like it's just the writing, maybe the editing has just overlooked where they're like, "This is my associate Donald,"
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I think so too, for sure. That's funny. And I also get confused on the order of scenes in this movie, like even thinking back on it, because I'm like, wait, what happens next? And I think it's because it's like very convoluted in a way that a lot of these action movies were. Because like I right now can't remember. Oh, I think after this is when they go to the Chinese herb shop. Right.
That's a great scene too.
They go to the Chinese herb shop. And that's another like really Steven Seagal scene. So basically I read that when Seagal got attached to this movie, that they had to, like, maybe I can't remember if I'm getting this from the Verne book or from where, but they kind of had to do some changes to make it fit Seagal, and like they had to write this scene in for Seagal, because who else would this ever make sense for him going in and being like, "Oh yeah, I speak Chinese, and
Yeah.
I'm, I understand all about Chinese herbology, and like it's just like
Well,
this
before we get to
crazy-
that scene, I do want to touch on they happen pretty quick back to back, but they do visit the morgue before going to
Oh
the Chinese
yeah,
store.
right. Because the first quote unquote family man murders, which we find out later, spoilers, were not actually done by the family man. They were done by someone else.
Yeah, we'll get
And
there.
so that scene is so funny too when he comes into the morgue.
Yeah. Oh, the whole morgue scene is insane. I kind of looking at my notes now, like I know I took pretty verbose notes, but I wish I would have taken more notes about that because there's some ridiculous lines. Because even so, Cole so far has been the ridiculous guy, and Campbell's been the guy that's like, okay, this is a pretty normal cop. But I can't remember. I want to say that it's the coroner explaining that she has a rare form of bone cancer, but his explanation, Campbell says, if you don't say it in English, I'm going to beat you to death with a dictionary.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Somehow, Cole is able to say like, oh, I think she's Russian. I think,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, you're able to tell Russian by like her bone structure or something. I forget exactly how he's able to tell.
Yeah, he explains it. He says her cheekbones, her hair,
Yeah.
her genetic bone structure or something like
Yeah.
that.
And
I think
so,
she's Georgian.
so this is a classic. I don't know. I don't know whether it is just audio and him just like halfway slurring his words, or if he's actually saying the wrong thing. I really hope it's just a very Seagalism of him just saying the wrong thing. But so Cole, after Cole says like all the stuff about like, yeah, I think she's Russian because this and that, Campbell just kind of mockingly says, yeah, she's an Aquarius and she likes country music. I had to rewind this scene a few times, and I swear it sounds like Cole says was an aquarium, not Aquarius, like aquarium, like where you see fish.
I saw that in your notes, and I went back and watched it, and he definitely, I think, to me, it sounds like he says she was an Aquarian.
Okay.
But like either way, he doesn't say Aquarius. I mean, there's no way he says Aquarius.
Because I was like, because and I'll tell you, and Wes, you already know this, but I'm just not. I don't know anything about astrology.
No,
I know my own sign because who doesn't? But like outside of that,
no,
I don't know. So like I don't know if so it's when I hear like she's an Aquarius, and then I just hear back was an aquarium. I was like,
well, and like I said, even if it's Aquarian, isn't that like somebody who like, I don't know, something about
I don't know,
water?
man.
I don't know. It's not Aquarius that he says. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Like, because I had to go back and watch that too. I was like, wait, what?
I don't know if that's what he was saying, but I had to rewind it a few times. I was like, it's like Steven Seagal is saying she was an aquarium.
If he would speak up, you could hear what he is saying. He says everything in like a whisper mumble.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's so like, it's just great. I don't know, because it's the other reason why it's hard for him to be the cut up is because like he never speaks above a whisper. You know what I mean? Like he's just like, yeah, I think she's Georgian. So then he like explains all that crazy stuff. Then he just grabs the scalpel and cuts out her breast implants so he can check it for the serial number. I guess he just like the coroner's just like, please do my job, and he just like grabs the scalpel and cuts it out. He's like, there we go. And I just thought the whole time I was like, man, this is nuts. This is bonkers. I watch a lot of Law and Order, and I'm like, I can't imagine one of the cops just coming in and just grabbing the scalpel and like going to work in the medical examiner's office.
Especially a recent transfer from New York. He's a new guy in town. He's new on the force.
The one thing we do know about him is he stopped another like serial killer guy in New York, but the way he stopped him was he ended up being alone with him on like a roof and shot him to death. And so there's this like cloud of suspicion over Cole that I can't remember that guy's name. He had a serial killer name too. I should have looked that up, but he had a cloud of suspicion over him that maybe he like killed him extrajudiciously, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
And so then we get the herb shop, and we don't necessarily have to go too much into that, but like they just go in, and it's like this typical thing where Keenan Ivory Wayans is like the fish out of water, and Steven Seagal is like, I know everything. I know all these people. The shop owners know him. You can tell he's a frequent flyer. And this is the first appearance of the deer penis.
Yeah.
So,
which they call back to, like, when I first saw this movie, I was thinking like, oh, that's just a funny little like joke.
It comes up 3 times in the film. Yeah. So he says, so Keenan Ivory Wayans starts sneezing, and he's like, I think I'm allergic to the incense. And Seagal says, oh, here, take this, put it under your tongue. It's good for allergies or whatever. So he puts it on his tongue. He's like, it's bitter. And he's like, it's bitter? It shouldn't be bitter. And he's like, that's powdered deer penis. and he's like, what? And he starts like spitting it out, or whatever. And it's just like, he's like, yeah, it's good for you. It's powdered deer penis. And like, the whole scene is just crazy. And I think the main point of that scene is just to prove that Steven Seagal not only knows all the other stuff we've talked about, he can recognize Georgians by their bone structure, and he can he knows to cut out breast implants, look at their
look at the serial number, I guess.
But he also knows about
Russians, just as you said.
Yeah, he knows, and he knows about he knows about Chinese herbology, and he speaks Chinese. I don't know if it's Mandarin or Cantonese or what. And like, and so anyway, the deer penis thing is funny to me. I don't even remember where they go next after that. Honestly, we don't have to follow the plot beat for beat because I don't remember. Maybe you do.
Oh, it's okay. Well, I did want to say one more thing about that scene is that does introduce to us that Campbell's favorite movie is Casablanca.
Yeah.
Because that movie's on, and the lady that works at the shop says, "Oh yeah, this movie always makes me cry," and he said it's a real tearjerker. And somehow him and Cole get into this kind of conversations like, "Oh yeah, but I'd never cry over a movie." I was like, he just wanted, but which is like, I mean,
they also call back to.
Yeah, that gets called back to later on. And I think that's that's kind of a big thing in the, I guess, in the 90s. It's just like, oh yeah, we're tough, guys are tough. And also there was something about Cole says like, oh yeah, crying cleanses the soul, it's good for you.
Yeah.
And Campbell says that if he needs a cleansing, he'll have a bran muffin, which also big 90s thing. I feel like I haven't heard that in a while, but I remember that for some reason in the 90s, I feel like the bran muffins just, what's I can't think of a
keep you regular.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah, for sure. This movie, like I said, the plot's hard to follow, bounces all around. But I just feel like you just get so many things while we're talking about scenes. Because like I said, while we're talking about scenes, eventually what we get is, in my opinion, one of the great scenes in all of Seagaldom, which is the parking garage scene.
Oh, it's so good.
So we know, because we're seeing the bad guys behind the scenes. I think we know by this point that like somehow they're going to be set up, but we don't know exactly how. So Cole and Campbell, Chicken Noodle Campbell, they're out riding around in their car, and they're going somewhere, and they see what looks like people breaking into a car. And so they pull over, and there's these gang members breaking into a car. But anyways, they come up and they're like having this conversation. They're like, hey, we're cops, and the police not the police, the bad guys don't seem at all afraid of them. And they're like, and Seagal's like, what's the deal? You got a screwdriver, we got guns, we got the badges. What don't we know? And about that time, these dudes come out from another room behind them, and they're Russian mafia.
Yeah.
They're Russian mafia guys. And so they've got all these guns pointed on them, and it's because they've been set up. So they're getting too close to whatever's going on, and they've been set up. And we get this insane moment when Steven Seagal is like, I can't fight. And it's against my religion. I'm a Buddhist. I can't fight. And Campbell is like, well, that would have been good to know before. Yeah. And I can't remember exactly how it happens, but he's like, I'll pay you. He's like, I'll pay you to let us go.
Yeah.
And he's like, would you take cash? It's like, once again, very Seagal. Like, he always has these moments where he's like so calm in the face of danger. And like in earlier movies, maybe that involves like him getting down on his knees and putting his hands behind his back to prove that he can give them so he doesn't have an unfair advantage because of how awesome he is. Mm-hmm. But in this one, he's just like keeping his head cool. He's like, you take cash, maybe you take my card. And he pulls out his credit card and a razor comes out of it. And he just like swipes it across and cuts all these dudes' throats. And then they're
slashes the throats of 3 guys back to back. Great police work, by the way.
I love that. When he's like, I can't fight. And then a couple minutes later pulls out a credit card with a razor in it, which he's carrying around intentionally.
Yeah.
He doesn't accidentally have that. And he's like, he cuts these dudes' throats, and then he just gets into like this awesome fight scene.
Yeah.
Because I gotta say,
razors.
And at the end, before that he says, my partner, he's a little bit country, I'm a little bit rock and roll. And the guy's like, what does that mean? And that's when he cuts his throat.
Yeah.
Because at the end, he's like, that's rock and roll.
During the fight, he goes, now this is rock and roll. And that's this is rock and roll. Then that's a very like obvious ADR line. Like, it almost doesn't sound like Seagal saying it, but I guess it is. But it's definitely not something that he said in the scene. I guess it's very clearly ADR.
But they have this awesome fight scene, and then
It's
at
great.
the end, Kevin Ivory Wayans is like, "I thought you said you couldn't fight." He's like, "It's not that I can't fight. It's just that I don't. I try not to because it's against my religion. I'm a Buddhist."
Yeah.
And so, two things to say here. First and foremost, this is where I say, like, to his credit, Steven Seagal can do a fight scene, like,
yeah.
straight up. I love watching his movies because his fight scenes are awesome. I think the action is awesome. He knows what he's doing in a fight scene. A lot of it looks realistic, probably because he was notorious for like being really rough with the stunt people. Like he would hit people.
Yeah, he'd get complaints about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of Seagal fight scenes, I don't think so. There's one part in this movie where somebody does land a punch on him, and we'll get there. But I don't think anybody lands a punch on him in this scene. And
Yeah.
I kind of think for all the fights he gets into in this movie, I don't think anybody lands a single punch on him, except for that one kind of late in the movie. And there has been, and this hasn't been verified, but there has been this kind of like "don't touch me" sort of clause rumored to be in his contract, which is like why he always wins the fight, is that it's like there's enough clauses in his contract or whatever that says like, oh well, yeah, you can't land a punch on him, which hasn't been confirmed, but does align with his ego. I don't know if it's true or not for this,
There's
but,
so much Seagal lore about him. Like it's hard to say what's true and what's not true. I mean, there's the famous judo Gene LaBelle story about him choking him out and all that. But like, who knows what's true and what's not? That's part of the fun about Seagal is he's like his lore is just insane.
Yeah.
But like, you're right about like in most of his movies, he is a Mary Sue, right? He has all the skills. He is untouchable in a fight. Like there's almost never any stakes for him. It's funny how his movies are still, at least in my opinion, really fun and really entertaining because you're never concerned. Like in Die Hard and movies like that, like, oh crap, dude, like John McClane is getting beat up and like he's in a tough situation right now. How's he going to get out of this one? But there's never that moment for Seagal in most of his movies. It's just like, of course he's going to get out. He's Steven Seagal. He might could like wake up from a nap and take these dudes out. Like he just is like he almost never gets touched, like you said. I think that fight scene is great, and I just think he for one thing he's a real martial artist. Like his background in Aikido, like he was legit. You hear people laugh about him now because they see all these training videos of him like kind of looking all lazy and stuff in his later days over in Russia. But like he was a legit Aikido
he got really interested in martial arts at a really young age. So
he was the first non-Japanese person, I think, to be able to open an Aikido dojo in Japan. He was 7th Dan, I think, in Aikido. Might be more than that now. He has multiple. He's legit martial artist, as crazy as he may be. So he knows that stuff. The other thing I was going to say was when he's like, "It's my religion. I'm a Buddhist." So I don't know exactly when it happened, but at some point, Seagal converts to Buddhism. So religious iconography has always been big in his movies because once again, and I'm taking this from somebody, I can't remember exactly which podcast, it might have been the Action Boys or High and Mighty or one of those. They were talking about this movie and they're like, he's not, or they were talking about a Seagal movie and they're like, he's not just a good guy, he's the best guy, and he has to be the best guy in everything. And so early in his films, he's a great father, he's a great cop, he's the best fighter, he's also like a very devout Catholic. But later on, for some reason, he starts working in more of his like, there's still a lot of Catholic stuff in this, but he starts working in more of his own Buddhist stuff. And this movie, he's just full on, I'm a Buddhist.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe that can get us into the famous scene of the favorite story about this movie, which is the story that Stephen Tobolowsky tells about working with Steven Seagal in this movie. So if you haven't seen the movie, or if you have, whatever, Stephen Tobolowsky plays the family man, the serial killer who kind of kicks this whole thing off. It's an interesting role for him because he's like a funny guy. He's Ned the Head Ryerson in Groundhog Day, and he's been in a bunch of
famous character actor. And
he tells a lot of great stories. I think for a while he had his own podcast where he was telling Hollywood stories, and one of the stories he tells, well, you had it in your notes too, right?
Yeah. So there is this scene, and it's a little bit after what we're on now, but it is a scene where he interacts with Cole. Cole is supposed to confront him. He's got the priest held hostage, and Cole is supposed to shoot him in the scene. So according to Stephen Tobolowsky, that was the first day of shooting for this movie.
Right, which is crazy.
Yeah. And Steven Seagal comes to him and he says, "Hey, I can't do this. Actually, I think I'm getting ahead of myself because I think he went to the producers and said, 'Hey, I don't want to kill people in movies anymore.' It's like, well, we're already like production has started for this movie, and this is in this script. You have to kill people, and you're like this Hollywood guy that's known for, you're an action star. You kill people on screen. That's part of the gig." And so they go to Stephen Tobolowsky. They're saying, "Hey, Steven Seagal doesn't want to kill anybody in movies anymore. He might approach you about that. Just don't let him." I feel like they kind of threw Stephen Tobolowsky to the woods or to the wolves there because yeah, like could you imagine having somebody tell you like, "Hey, Steven Seagal's going to come to you and he's going to try to talk you into this. Just say no to him."
Yeah.
But yeah, he doesn't want to, and Stephen Tobolowsky talks him into doing the scene the day of. He says, "Hey, well, here's the deal. I'm playing a serial killer, and I'm such a tormented soul. It would actually, and you're the good guy in this movie, and it would actually do my character a favor." For him to be able to leave this universe. I forget exactly how he phrased it, but somehow he talked to Steven Seagal.
He plays up like reincarnation. He's like, I'll be reincarnated into a better, and I'll have another chance, or whatever.
But yeah, so Steven Seagal shoots the scene, kills him, and then some time goes by. Stephen Tobolowsky gets a call. It's like, "Hey, so we kept filming this movie. Steven Seagal keeps ad-libbing a lot of lines about how he's glad he didn't kill you." Even though the scene is very obvious that he shoots him. He's like, "Could you come in and do some ADR work? Could you like say, could you make it sound like you might have survived that?" And I think they did shoot some scenes to make it to where like they could have possibly edited in a way where Stephen Tobolowsky's character doesn't die in that scene.
He says that he came in and did some ADR work because he says he came in and did some ADR work where he basically was like, "Finish me off, you SOB. Don't leave me this way." And like, it doesn't make it into the film. So like, if you don't know this story of Stephen Tobolowsky's, like it doesn't impact the film because none of that is in the film. He just kills him.
Yeah, the final edit of the film, he just kills him. They must have just worked around all the ad-libs.
Thinking about that. I love thinking about Seagal having this like religious experience where he doesn't want to kill people anymore. And that's apparently the first day of shooting. So then I guess by the time they shoot the credit card scene where he cuts those people's necks open, he's over it. I don't know. Yeah, it's just so crazy. And I looked it up. So once again, I don't know much about Tibetan Buddhism, but in February of 97, so, a half year or so after this movie comes out, Steven Seagal is named a tulku in the Nyingma Tibetan Buddhism sect, which is like a resurrected version of like a former teacher, former great teacher. So he's given this like title, which some people have suspected there might be some behind the scenes maneuvering going on in some of these temples to have that done. But so he I guess what I'm getting at is like, this was around the time that he was really going through something with his Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's interesting how that played into this movie because he's trying to be like, we can't put out violence into the world, but at the same time, that's literally what he does.
Yeah, that's like, what he does for a living.
His whole persona, and it continues to be in films. His whole persona he must have left that behind pretty quickly because he goes back to killing people. I just think that's really funny.
Yeah.
So let's see.
So there is. I want to cover the scene in the restaurant, but I do want to give.
Please.
I want to give a little bit of background. So during one of the Family Man killings, they arrive at the crime scene. Which I don't want to spend too much time on this, but they arrive at the crime scene, and Steven Seagal leaves, and is just I think in his mind like, I'm dark and mysterious and being cool. He goes home. His wife greets him, whatever, and. So he tells his wife that I have to go tell my kids their mother is dead. And this is how we find out that one of the victims is Cole's ex-wife. This movie has the weirdest way of explaining things or revealing things to the audience.
Yeah.
At this point in the movie, we don't know Donald's name. We don't know why the movie is called The Family or the
Glimmer Man.
The Glimmer Man. Yeah. Despite because they're looking for a killer named the Family Man. We don't know why it's called the Glimmer Man. It is wild to me that was just notable to me that after leaving the crime scene, that's how we as the audience find out the female victim of the last crime scene that he was at was his ex-wife.
That is notable, and I actually wanted to talk about that scene too, because I wrote down in my notes, I was like, that ex-wife murder scene is bonkers.
Yeah.
So it's bonkers, and it's pretty convoluted. We find out later on, just like to let everybody in on this, so the Family Man is a real thing. Stephen Tobolowsky is playing this real serial killer named the Family Man, but what we find out is that Frank Deverall is involved with Mr. Smith, who's one of Seagal's former CIA, I guess, handlers, secret ops handlers, and they are involved in some underground dealings to smuggle chemical weapons from Russia into America through the Russian mob, and then sell them to Serbian, I think, or I don't know, maybe I don't want to say the wrong country, but to some countries' freedom fighters. And so they're like, it's this convoluted thing, and they're using the Family Man. I guess it's Donald, his head of his security is the professional who's doing these hits, but they're making them look like the Family Man. So the ones of the Russians in the hotel room or whatever that we went to the autopsy, they were covered up because they were translators that were being used, and also maybe mules that were being used to smuggle this stuff, and they were getting sick. She got cancer from the chemical weapons, and they were afraid it was going to spill their secret. We also find out that very coincidentally, Seagal's ex-wife was killed not to target him as they initially think, even though they tried to work that in apparently, but he was killed because her new husband, is a therapist who had been seeing Johnny, Deverall's stepson, and they were afraid that Johnny had leaked their secret to the therapist. So that's why he's killed. So they're called to this scene. Seagal's obviously upset. You don't know why he's upset because he doesn't say anything about it. He's just at this scene where his ex-wife has been brutally murdered, and you hear one of the cops say, "She's got kids, but we haven't located them yet." Yeah. And I thought, in Seagal's mind, he's thinking, well, they're at my house, so don't worry about it. Like,
also,
he doesn't say anything.
He's just joined the force. He's not just joined the force overall, but he's just transferred in from New York, and how do they not know this?
I don't know. I thought that too. I was like, how do they not know that it's his ex? It's just like, maybe they wouldn't. I don't know. He doesn't say anything. Yeah. Who knows? And like, they eventually reveal it all. He's like, why didn't you say anything? He's like, they'd pull me off the case, and like, all this stuff. But when they were like, we don't know where the kids are, and then right after that, he goes to visit his current wife, who we only know it's his current wife because later in the film he says something about, tell my wife I love her, or something like that. Mm-hmm. At like the end of the movie, he says some weird offline about like that. And then the kids are just there, and he has to be like, I have to go tell him. I have to go break it to him. It's real weird.
I have in my notes, his current wife seems surprisingly normal given all we've learned about Cole thus far.
I thought that too. I was like, what is her story?
Because she just seems like a normal person at home, which compared to him,
So apparently, her character was the victim of some pretty severe cuts they made to this movie. Apparently, there were more scenes of her interactions with Cole, and they just cut her out. They just cut her out to make the movie more streamlined. Yeah. I mean, if you watch Seagal movies, one thing I've always thought was kind of interesting is like a lot of these action movies, they have these like kind of pigeonholed romance plots where it's like, these movies aren't here for the romance. They're here for the fight scenes and stuff blowing up, but they pigeonhole in a romance either just because that's what you do in movies, or because they want the main character to be like, see, he's also very attractive to women, whatever the case. But in Seagal movies, they generally just forego that. I mean, they might have, some of them, they have romance subplots, but they're kind of just there to be like, see, he's good with the ladies. And in this one, I was just like, there's no female presence really to be found in this whole movie, really. I mean, the occasional female shows up, but not long. It's very strange. And apparently she was cut out, though. Apparently she did have a bigger role.
That probably, this is going to sound like I'm assuming negatively about Seagal, but that probably benefits him as an actor because, like we were talking about earlier, about him like kind of cracking some jokes and us theorizing that, behind the scenes, he's probably thinking, oh, well, I'm just as funny as Keenan Ivory Wayans. Actually, he's probably thinking he's funnier, but I wouldn't be surprised given his other acting chops. I wouldn't be surprised if he might struggle to have chemistry on screen. Because I mean, even with a partner, I feel like, I think Keenan Ivory Wayans does a pretty good job at bantering in a lot of these scenes, but there's some, there's a lot of times where Seagal seems a little robotic. So like, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe some of his interactions with a potential love interest might not come off as all that smooth on camera. And I'm just I'm just assuming maybe he's great at it, and it's just they had to make time.
If you'd like to see how that would look, you can, once again, to plug my favorite Seagal movie, Hard to Kill, you can watch Hard to Kill, which does have a romance subplot because he acted alongside Kelly LeBrock, his then wife.
Okay.
So you can see what it would look like for him to interact with someone who in real life he is married to on screen. And get ready for a treat because that movie is incredible.
Nice.
But so, yeah. So, I feel like we were going to talk about something else. We had talked about the ex-wife murder scene because you were trying to get to the restaurant scene.
Yeah, cool. Because I wanted to get to where we meet Mr. Smith before, because he's at the restaurant too. So anyway, actually, this is the scene. Like after he gets home, he's in this. He's in this other room. Which, by the way, when we were talking about like, oh, his wife looks normal, their home looks normal, there's kids playing in the backyard, everything looks normal. There is this establishing shot right before this that has his like incense and all of the kind of for lack of a better term, like kind of taekwondo looking stuff.
Sure.
All in this room. There's this establishing shot that makes me think that all of this stuff might be in the shed, and maybe his wife was like, "Listen, you gotta do that somewhere else."
This one, okay, fine. You have a man cave.
Yeah,
it's fine. Yeah,
but while he's in there, he picks up the phone and he makes a phone call to somebody. I don't think we ever find out who he's on the phone with.
Oh yeah, true.
He goes to somebody. He says, tell Mr. Smith that Mr. Jones needs to contact him. Which is a weird thing to say on the phone because he's trying to get in touch with Mr. Smith, but he's on the phone with somebody we don't know. Tells that person Mr. Jones needs to contact Mr. Smith. So there's two middlemen, neither of which we've met. And then
presumably Mr. Jones, I think, was probably the name he went by, one of his like code names.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes a lot more sense then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because at one point when he meets Mr. Smith, he's like, "So, Detective Cole, that is the name you're going by these days, isn't it?"
That's right.
So,
yeah.
So presumably that was one of his like covert op code names was Mr. Jones.
Gotcha. Okay. So after that, we cut to a scene where it starts with a CIA ashtray, which kind of, I guess, okay, this person was involved with the CIA. It's presumably Mr. Smith because he tells an assistant to ignore Mr. Jones because we have bigger fish to fry.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
I didn't notice that there was a CIA ashtray. That is hilarious.
Yeah.
I love that. I love thinking about them being like, how are we going to let them know this is CIA? Brand that ashtray.
Yeah. Let's have this guy with a commemorative ashtray.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so funny. But yeah, the restaurant scene that we're eventually going to get to is
it took so much build. This is going to be such a long episode, and I'm really sorry.
It's okay, man. It deserves it, I think. So it deserves it, I think. So there is
good.
One of my favorite for fight scenes, and I want you to say what you want to say about it first, but I will just say this is one of my favorite and most Seagal-ish fight scenes in this movie is when we get to that restaurant. Proceed.
Yeah. So my notes on this scene starts with Cole visits the restaurant. This scene is awesome.
Yeah, it's really good.
So he arrives. They're closed for a private event, but he comes in anyway, and the host is on the phone, and he says they're closed for a private event, and he's talking in an Italian accent. And Cole starts ringing the bell, and it's like the bell they'll ring this bell for service kind of bell. He rings it like 6 or 7 times, and the host then like puts his hand over like the receiver, and he says to Cole in an American accent. I'm gonna remember. I can't remember the exact line, but it was something like, "Hey, can't you see we're closed?" And it's so funny that he just code switches right away to this like almost New York sounding accent, even though we're in LA. But whatever, he's
sure.
But Cole slaps him, and with one slap, this guy goes down. Picks up the phone and tells the guy on the other end, "Yeah, come on over. We'll give you a table."
Yeah, I love that. I like that a lot.
So he pretty much just fights his way to the back, right? Is it? Or does
no? He just storms back there,
Okay,
and this
gotcha.
like security guy gets in front of him and puts his hand on his chest. Is like, "Where are you going?" And he almost seems like he knows who he is. Maybe he doesn't. And Seagal like grabs him by the hand and arm in like this like lock, and the guy like whimpers. He's like, "Oh!" and Seagal like basically like throws him to the side or something and walks on back. So he's not necessarily fighting his way back there. He just like humiliates the security guard.
Yeah. So he gets back there, And it's Mr. Smith that we were introduced to earlier, which that's and sorry to take a while to get there, but I wanted to cover where we met Mr. Smith
Yeah, sure.
talking on the
Who
phone
who
before.
was originally supposed to have been played by Tommy Lee Jones, who
That's
turned the
true.
role
Yeah,
down.
I saw that. That would have been interesting. I do
Yeah.
like Tommy Lee Jones as an actor.
Yeah, he was in Under Siege, so that's
Oh.
probably where he. Yeah,
But yeah, from the dialogue, turns out he's dining with a senator.
with a senator.
Yeah, and who knows what they're talking about? They don't really go into that all that much.
Shady stuff.
Yeah, probably back of the restaurant, private event. Yeah, probably something shady. But yeah, so Cole thinks that Mr. Smith knows who the killer is. That's why he wants to get in touch with him because as we've said before, he thinks this is the work of a professional, and he thinks Mr. Smith might know who this professional is. Cole kind of confirms that the police department isn't up on his past and is still a little mysterious about it. One thing, and this is not a huge plot device, but one thing that I just thought was funny in this scene is they have this like bread basket. And if you go to any sort of Italian restaurant that has bread, a lot of times it's like a basket with a napkin under it, bread on top. He takes the napkin out of the bread basket to like wipe his hands, but he pulls it out with all the bread still landing in the basket. It's like a miniature version of the pull the tablecloth sort of trick.
I didn't even notice that. That's funny.
But yeah. So anyway, was there anything else before that conversation ends?
No, they just sit down, and that's kind of where we figure out, hey, first off, we get the impression that Mr. Smith and Cole or Mr. Jones or whoever, they are not necessarily on actual good terms. They used to work together, but they don't seem very friendly with each other. And we kind of leave with the suspicion that if Smith is not involved himself, he knows more than he's letting on. So it doesn't really end well. And then Seagal, who... I can't remember. So the security guard, what I thought was funny, the security guard or bodyguard or whatever, who he had just embarrassed, comes back there and is like giving Seagal crap again. And I can't remember if Seagal hits him again or not, but he definitely like shuts him down. So it's twice now. The guy's like trying to play tough after he's already been humiliated.
And I think he throws him through a window.
He definitely does
within the restaurant. Not like
he definitely
doesn't throw
does
him outside.
on the way out.
Yeah.
He definitely does on the way out. Throw him through like a window thing, which is a very Seagal thing. Throwing people through windows and shelves and things like that is a big Seagal.
Oh yeah,
thing.
The
also
process,
hitting people in the neck because
the process of him leaving this restaurant, I think, is why I was like, this scene's and like him interrupting the phone call. He proceeds to just beat his way out of this restaurant, just punching everybody, throwing people through windows,
destruction.
Yeah, it's incredible. And by the time he gets back up to that host stand, the phone's ringing again. Picks up the phone, lets them know, no, we're closed for renovations, takes a look at all the destructions he's caused, and he says, oh, I don't know, about 2 months.
Yeah, I love that part when he just like eyeballs the restaurant, and he's like, yeah, about 2 months.
Yeah.
It's really, honestly, that line is funny. Yeah. I feel like that is funny. Like that is the perfect type of humor for Seagal. Exactly. He can't make fun of himself, but he can make funny lines about how awesome he is.
Right. Yeah.
And destroying stuff. Yeah, I love that scene, man. It's a pretty classic like Seagal fight scene, like throwing people through stuff and whacking people in the neck. And at one point, like finally, it's not like the classic action movie thing where like all the dudes take him on one at a time, like they team up on him. I noticed that pointed out in the Verne book. But he was, people team up on him at one point, and he grabs him in the nuts and stuff. It's pretty sick. Yeah, I love that. I love that. And my other favorite scene I was going to talk about, well, one thing I just want to mention is I was really excited that there was an exploding oil tanker in this movie. I love vehicle explosions. I feel like it's something that like, it's something that in action movies that I just really love is when a vehicle explodes. I really enjoy the fact that in like the 80s and even some to the early 90s, but like the 80s, it didn't take much for a car to explode. There's some of the Death Wish movies. There's some of the Death Wish movies. I can't remember now which one. I think it might be Death Wish 4, where this car just like rolls down a hill and crashes, not even that hard, but crashes into a telephone pole and explodes. And I remember thinking like, dude, can you imagine being in that vehicle? Like it just like rolled out down a hill and hit. Anyway, so I love that. Not to get too far off on my love of cars exploding.
No, that's awesome. And I love that about like movies of that genre, how easy it is for cars to explode. Apparently that was a real, I don't know if you guys listened to the name, it's Stuff You Should Know is the name of the podcast. It's a very long running podcast, and I remember there was one episode where they covered the Ford Pinto, and apparently that was a real issue because of where the gas tank was located. They blew up really easily.
Oh,
but which is it is unfortunate in real life, but in action movies, for whatever reason, I always think back to that episode where I'm just like, it's like every car is susceptible
yeah.
to what they were describing about this one car that's like famously like like dangerous because of
In
that.
this movie, at least, they like have a good reason for it, which is the car flips and goes up on top of, and then slides under an oil tanker, and just this collision causes this huge explosion.
Yeah.
Apparently, they had to do that twice. Apparently, the first time they did it, the oil tanker didn't totally blow up, so they had to do
Wow.
it again.
That's
So they did it twice.
I always just feel like that's a one-shot scene, but okay,
No,
cool.
apparently they did it twice, and like they're shooting on location in Los Angeles, and so apparently like people start calling the police and being like, I don't know what's going on in my neighborhood, but there's some crazy explosions, and I don't really have much else after that. That was just from the production notes on the DVD, but I just
Oh,
thought that
that's
was kind
funny.
of
I
funny.
didn't know that. Yeah.
The DVD had a little production notes section where there's just stuff written about the movie. But I just thought that was great. And then the final scene that I think we really need to talk about, maybe I'm leaving something out, you can
Oh,
throw
no,
anything
no.
in, is the final. Well, I mean, I guess we can talk about when we kind of see Deverall and Mr. Smith together in this pool doing like sleazy bad guy stuff. They love having bad guys in pools in these movies. And basically it comes down where Smith is like, too many loose ends, we got to kill your stepson. And and Deverell at first is like, we don't have to kill my stepson. He's like, look, there's 3 loose ends. There's these 2 cops. There's you, and there's the stepson. I got to have 3 of them gone. And so then he's like, all right, cool, kill my stepson. So they go, they send,
All right, cool, fine, yeah, if you say so.
So they send bad guys after to the sanitarium where Johnny's locked up, and Seagal and Keenan Ivory Wayans have to go and save him. And then they do. You know, I don't remember much about that scene other than just once again, there's kind of some cool action stuff. There was one scene we left out where Seagal like viciously pistol whips a Russian mobster guy who comes to pick him up, and I thought that scene was pretty sick too. He doesn't just hit him like in a lot of these movies. You see like somebody take the pistol and like whack a dude and knock him out. He's just like slam, 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 slam over his head. And I was like, that's pretty wild.
I wonder if that was one of those stunt scenes that you hear about where like there's like guys that are just like, he's too rough on us.
Oh, another thing in the production notes was that, and I don't know how true this is, but Keenan Ivory Wayans was basically talking about how he learned so much about doing action scenes from working with Seagal, but he was like, I put in my contract that me and him don't fight. He's like, I don't want that. I don't want to be fighting him.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think that's funny.
Can't say I blame him.
No, me either. And so then finally, though, we get this big showdown. They set everything up in a really convoluted way where they record people and they turn Donald against Deverall, and they go and they kidnap Mr. Smith and basically like torture him into spilling the beans on the whole plot. They kind of start to give him the stigmata, like Steven Seagal shoots him through the foot, and then through the hand, and then he's going to shoot him through the other hand. But then he's like, "I'll tell you everything," and they let him go, and he's like, "Hobble your way to a hospital."
Yeah. Yeah, he's like, hey, can you guys get me to a hospital? No, you've got one good foot, hobble to
Hobble your way. And they show him start to hobble, which I really like. You know, we don't have to stay on him that long, but he starts to be like, I guess I'm hobbling to a hospital. I think I said hotel. To a hospital.
I don't want this podcast to be just all over the place, but I do want to go back to the pool scene just real quick.
Absolutely.
Because one of the things I noted was he said, or who was it? Deverall says, I'll put Donald on this. I'll put Donald on the others right away when they kind of agree to like kind of tie up the loose ends. This is the first time, and I wanted to make sure to watch for this in my, like, I think either second or third viewing of the movie. This is the first time we hear Donald's name.
That's funny.
And I was thinking, like, having seen the whole movie before that, I know who he's talking about. But the first time, it's like, are we as an audience supposed to know who he's talking about yet?
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's really funny. Like, that's a real oversight. Like, I guess you just be like, I don't know. I guess I could put Donald.
It's like,
whatever.
I think, because I didn't put too much stock in it the first time around, and I just thought like, it's just one of his guys. But then, like, as the movie goes on, you kind of put together like, oh yeah, that's that guy that's been with him all along. Yeah,
yeah, that's funny, man. I did not trace Donald's saga quite the way you did. So I think that's funny.
I don't know why. I'll tell you, man, I don't know why I latched onto it like I did, but it was just like, because like the first time because I think it was the second time around, I was like wanting to tidy up my notes, and it was like the scene ended. I was like, Donald had a lot of speaking parts, never introduced himself, And then like as the movie went on, I'm just like, if I'm watching this for the first time, I still don't know this guy's name.
That's really funny. Yeah. Oh, another thing, speaking about going all out of order, which is fine because that's just it's how my brain works and that's how the podcast works. But while they're still trying to figure things out, even I guess before they kill Stephen Tobolowsky, I guess it's how they figure out that Stephen Tobolowsky's guy, I forget his name, is the family man.
Yeah.
They decide to submit the artwork left at the crime scenes to like prison psychiatrists and prison clergy and stuff like that. And they talk to this psychiatrist who worked with him and recognizes his art, like his art from, and so that's how they figure him out. But what I want to say about that scene was just, this is the callback, the first of 2 callbacks to the deer penis, because Keenan Ivory Wayans is sitting there, he starts sneezing. She's like, "You okay?" And he's like, "I'm just allergic to the incense." And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And he's like, "That's okay. I'm gonna go suck on some deer penis after this." And she looks at him so funny. He goes, "It's okay. It's Chinese deer penis. You put it under your tongue. Don't worry about it." Like, I don't know. That line was so weird, and I don't know if it was like well delivered, but it was certainly really funny to me when he's like, "That's okay. I'm gonna suck on some deer penis."
Yeah, it certainly established like, oh, that joke from earlier, we're going to call back to that. It's going to be like a thing for them. The other thing that I thought was funny about that scene is after he was like, "Yeah, I'm allergic to the incense," she was like, "Oh, can I get you anything?" And the incense is like right in front of him. Like rather than getting him anything, why not just move the incense? Yeah,
move it. It's so weird.
Especially like when she's like, "Can I get you?" Like she's being considerate, but like any real life person would be like, "Oh, you're allergic? Oh, let me get that. Let me put that out, man." You know?
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. And then also, I thought that too. He slides it forward a little bit, but I'm like, I ain't gonna do nothing. Another thing we probably should talk about is, so while all this is happening, so suspicion falls on Steven Seagal's character, Detective Cole, because he was secretive about it being his ex-wife as one of the victims, and they planted one of his fingerprints on her body apparently afterwards, and so suspicion on him, and they look into him, and like you said, they kind of confront him about, we don't have anything on his background, we don't know anything about who he is. He's really, his past is a blank slate. What's going on with this guy? And during all this, at some point, Seagal and Keenan Ivory Wayans like separate, and that's when they drag Seagal. They like go to his house and they say they're internal affairs, but they're not really. They're the Bratva, and they kidnap Russian mob.
Yeah,
and they kidnap him, and they that's when he does the pistol whipping. But at the same time, wait, no, it must be before that. I'm trying to figure out when Steven Seagal comes up to Keenan Ivory Wayans and he's at the movie theater watching Casablanca.
Oh yeah. Let's see. I think that's before the internal affairs, because I think that is. Oh, that's a good.
I just wanted to comment on that because you talked about how earlier he was talking about Casablanca, and it's tearjerker, but he was like, "I never cry at movies." And we come into this theater and Casablanca's on, and one of my favorite movies as well. But Keenan Ivory Wayans is watching it, he's quoting along with it, and he's like crying. And I thought, okay, I think Keenan Ivory Wayans did a great job in this movie. I'm not sure that the crying was handled too well. It's very over the top. He's like, "Oh," but so Seagal comes up on him and he's like, "You crying?" And he's like, "No, my eyes leak when I yawn." And he's trying to pretend he's not crying. And then they go outside and they have this little conversation. I guess this is kind of where Seagal brings Campbell back over to his, I'm just all over the place with whether they're characters or they're actors, but brings him back over to his side. And right before they leave, Campbell's like, "Well, I don't know about you. I'm going to go in and watch the rest of this movie." And Seagal's like, "Is it a good movie?" And he's like, "Casablanca? Yeah. You never seen Casablanca? Have I ever seen? You're asking me if I've never seen Casablanca?" And he's like, "Well, have you?" "No, I've never seen it." And it was just like this weird exchange where, what's the point of this? And then he goes in with him. Having seen the movie, I'm going to tell you, him going in at that point in the movie, he's going to watch about the last 10 minutes of that movie. Like, it was so weird that he goes in there with
the
him.
Timing of that scene is like, yeah, I'm going to go back in and watch this movie. I was thinking that too. It's just like, there's like hardly any of that movie left. You guys have been talking for a while.
And the end of that movie. It was just funny.
And that scene, and I was wondering, just like, even outside of just the context of the movie, were they trying to establish that, like, okay, like these guys were new to each other, but now that they're doing a little good-natured ribbing with one another, they're like buddies now?
I guess. Yeah. I guess that must be it. So, okay, we got through all that. Basically, one more thing I want to say, because you mentioned several times what's this movie called, The Glimmer Man. Also in the pool scene, we find out that Smith basically explains, I think I might have written this part down.
It's 55 minutes into the movie, Smith said he was known as the Glimmer Man. Because so Smith is given a background. Like, he's like, Cole used to work for him. He used to do odd jobs. He's an ex-employee of Smith. He was a soldier, but he was recruited from Vietnam for a special projects unit. He's handled several odd jobs. Smith says he was known as the Glimmer Man. As far as I can tell, this is the first time. That this name is mentioned in the movie. So it's 55 minutes in. I'm just like, okay,
the only time.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think this is the only time. But yeah, he said he was the Glimmer Man because there would be nothing but jungle, then a glimmer, then you're dead.
Yeah. Suffice to say, to the people he hunted for us, he was known as the Glimmer Man.
Yeah.
There'd be nothing but jungle, then a glimmer. They'd be dead.
Yeah.
So in the Verne book, once again, to give credit where credit's due, he talks about something that I also thought at the time, which is like, well, that doesn't make any sense because how would you know that there was a glimmer if he killed them? They wouldn't be able to report on the glimmer. They wouldn't be able to report back on the glimmer.
That's true. Yeah.
Also, what was the glimmer? I guess I always assumed that was like his knife splink or gun or something
I was
catching the
thinking
light.
it was gunfire, but yeah, I guess it could be
Okay, maybe
anything.
so. That's so funny. Anyway, it's crazy that that's the name of the movie because of that one line that's
Yeah.
introduced like so late into the film. So eventually they do all this recording. Like I said, they've already gotten Mr. Smith out of the way by kidnapping him and shooting him up a little bit to torture him. So then they set Donald against Deverall. There's this scene where they're supposed to be meeting up with the Russian mob guys, I guess, who are bringing in the chemical weapons, but they turn Deverall. They make Deverall agree to turn Donald over to them, but then they call Donald and they play a recording, so he knows that Deverall's going to set him up, and basically they just turn the bad guys on each other. So they go into this room, and then Donald's guys draw down on Deverall's guys, and they start having this gunfight. And then Seagal, who has very recently told Keenan Ivory Wayans the importance of patience and allowing the other guys to kind of tire themselves out or kill themselves before you go in, kill each other before you go in. He's just like, I don't listen to my own advice, and he just barges into the room, and this huge gunfight breaks out. Once again, great action scene. They're just shooting the crap out of each other, and then somehow it ends up with like Keenan Ivory Wayans is off on his own and he's searching for somebody, and he gets shot in the arm by Donald and he falls out, and Seagal's up on the roof, and Campbell's like, Cole, come save me. I can't hold on much longer. So then Cole like rappels down on this rope and gets him off the balcony, and then they rappel in through this, like break in through this window, and then Cole's like, can you get down? And he's like, yeah. And so Campbell just like goes off on his own, and Cole proceeds to like go back down the side of the building.
Yeah.
Just rappel down the rest of the way. He ends up in the
lobby, right?
Yeah, he ends up in the lobby.
Which also great scene.
Yeah, he's
Donald's about to make his escape. He goes up
Yes.
to the door and it's chained shut. Which where did he get the chains?
I don't know. I guess he just carries that stuff around on him.
It's chained shut, and then it pans over, and the guy at the front desk is reading a newspaper. He drops the newspaper. It's Steven Seagal.
Dun,
Like,
dun,
what a cool scene.
Yeah. And then he gets up and they have their like two bad guys fighting it out scene. This is the scene you mentioned earlier where Seagal finally takes a punch. But basically it does the classic Seagal thing where he has to insult the manhood of his villain. It happens a lot in these movies. So like they're like choking each other out. The whole time he's just like, is that all you got, boy? Is that all you got? And they're like choking each other out. And finally he's like, if that's all you got, I guess I'm going to have to kill you. And then he throws him out the window and he lands like basically almost like a crucifixion pose, like stabbed on this, like these fence spikes.
And I think they probably did it that way to be like a throwback to the early like Family Man killings, I guess.
Yeah, I would assume so.
During that fight scene, there's a few like kind of obviously recorded after the fact like ADR lines that don't line up with Steven Seagal's mouth movements. He's
awesome.
After that, he's like, "Take your best shot." And then he takes a swing and said, I said best shot. And then he takes another shot. He goes, boring. And they might not have lined up on others, but boring, it's like he barely opens his mouth for a split second, but you hear funny. Boring. You know?
That's really funny. Yeah. The whole dialogue is classic Seagal during that part. I just think that's so funny. The part at the very end, he's like, if that's all you got, I guess I'm going to have to kill you.
Yeah.
So then he kills him. And of course, with the final Steven Seagal movies, I always think it's funny how like once the main bad guy's dead, like they're out pretty quick. You don't need a lot of wrap up. So we basically see like we got him. So we basically see them all kind of like standing outside and like they're loading Campbell into an ambulance because he got shot, and the police captain or whatever who previously has been a real jerk to Seagal comes up and he's like, I guess you think I owe you an apology. And he's like, that would be nice. And he's like, well, maybe you think I owe you one, and maybe I do owe you one, but you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of like cut up for a minute, sort of. Yeah. That's when Seagal's like, tell my wife, I guess Seagal's not going to go home or something. He's like, tell my wife I'm fine, or tell my wife I love her, or something weird like that.
Yeah.
And then like they're having their little like Campbell and Cole are having their little like we're buddies now moment, but it's not really like a we're buddies because Campbell is like, hey Jack, don't call me for a few days. We shouldn't speak for a few days. He goes
Yeah.
this whole thing about like, don't
Don't
call
write.
me,
Don't
write. If I see a carrier pigeon with a message, I'm gonna kick it out or something.
Yeah.
And he's like, and Cole says something, and he's like, well, you've basically like ruined my life. He's like, before I met you, like I had a good apartment. He's like, I had a good job. Now I'm going to the hospital. I've been shot. My home's been burned down. I'm basically homeless. He goes through all this stuff, and you're just like, yeah, I guess he like pretty much ruined his life.
Yeah.
And then he says, well, hey, at least you got to try deer penis.
Yeah. Which was the final callback to that. Which I'm glad you caught that about his wife. I didn't catch that at the end, which is funny to me. Like go like tell my wife tell my wife anything. It's just like, you got the bad guy. You can just go tell her yourself. Like I think your work here is done, man. Just
credit where it's due. I read that somewhere that was like it's confusing. Oh, I think in the Verne book once again, because he was like when we meet. You were talking about how normal she is. He was like, apparently when he watched it, he thought that it was just the babysitter, because the chemistry between Cole and his wife is
different people.
Is so
You're right.
The chemistry is so intense apparently that he thought it was just the babysitter. Like there's almost no romantic notions between them. But then later when he says about his wife, he's like, oh, I guess it must be his wife. That's the only reason why I knew that, because later. But apparently, like I said, there were supposed to be more scenes with her. So that's pretty much the end of the film. Anything we left out that you want to talk about?
Oh man. There is, I mean, I can't think of anything. There is one part where this isn't a huge deal, but when Campbell first starts getting suspicious of him, there's one point back at the station where Campbell's talking to the captain, and he's like, I think it was after the credit card scene, where he's like, yeah, he chopped him like it was a Ginsu knife. He's speaking all these different languages. And I just thought that was so Seagal to have this scene where some other character's like, I can't explain it, man. This guy's good at everything. You know?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I love lines like that. Yeah. One thing I wanted to make sure to throw in, another one of the famous like Steven Seagal bits of lore, which I guess apparently maybe comes from this movie. I was looking on, I guess it was IMDb trivia, and it said, according to Keenan Ivory Wayans, there was one time during production that Seagal was like really late to show up on set, and they'd waited a long time. And then it threw in parentheses that he was not known for caring for the time when filming was supposed to start and would always show up very late. But Seagal appeared on set with a script, and he was saying, this is the greatest script I've ever read in my life. And Wayans asked him, he said, well, who wrote it? And he says, I did.
I love that. I love that so much.
I've always loved that story. I've always heard that story about him. I didn't realize it was for this film. So that's pretty great.
That's
the
awesome.
Greatest script I've ever read in my life. Who wrote it?
I did.
So I really love that. The final thing I wanted
good.
to talk about, I always try to talk a little bit about the music in a film.
Yeah.
So a couple things about the music on this one. So as we said earlier, I don't really know how to pronounce the guy's name. Hopefully I'm doing it okay. But Trevor Rabin, he was a former member of the band Yes. And this was his first. This was his first film score.
Okay.
He eventually would go on to do a lot of work in film scores, but this was his first. Seagal championed him for the film because Rabin had coached Seagal in his guitar playing earlier in life, so he knew him from being sort of like a guitar coach to him. So, do you have any thoughts about the music in the film?
Not anything super specific. I mean, when it's zooming out of Seagal at the very end and this kind of like blues rock comes in, I'm just like, yeah, that is what would be perfect there. It's just a very perfect, like that is the end of an action movie.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. I've got something about that. But I was going to say before I move into that, the score stuff, I thought the score was pretty passable here. Mm-hmm. It makes sense. It was his first one. I thought it was pretty good. I liked it. It didn't stand out to me like the scores in some other films did. Yeah. I did like that they mixed in sort of like in places they would have like typical action music, but they would also mix in sort of like big choir sounding parts, which sort of fit with the whole family man, Catholic iconography sort of thing they had going on. So I did think that was pretty interesting, but on the whole, like it was pretty good. It didn't stand out to me too much, but I liked it. I was interested in it. Now, that song you were talking about at the end is one of two songs that Seagal is at least credited as co-writer.
Awesome. So, I didn't know that. That's great.
So if you don't know anything about Seagal, another one of his many, many skills is that he's like a blues rock guitar player.
Yeah.
And he would become increasingly involved in writing songs for his films. He at least has a writing credit on the ending credits song of Marked for Death, which is like a reggae song, but he would get more and more into like the kind of blues rock. So the song at the end is performed by the Jeff Healey band. So I don't know if Seagal is sitting in on the performance, but definitely he's credited as a co-writer, I think, on that song and one other song. I think that song's called Bulletproof, if memory
Yeah.
serves. And I just thought that was really funny
Yeah.
that Seagal, he's also involved in the music.
That's so cool.
If people haven't looked up his albums, he's got two. One
Yeah.
of them is called Songs from the Crystal Cave. It's just, they're really funny. Like some of the names are really funny. Of the songs, you got to look those up. But yeah, Seagal also involved in the music of this film, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah, that's so cool.
So that's pretty much it, man. I usually do like a buddy cop crossovers thing. I didn't want to force it this time, and I just don't really have much. I mean, other than pointing out the obvious that Keenan Ivory Wayans is the brother of Damon Wayans, who's been involved in several buddy cop movies, including Bulletproof that we talked about previously on this. I didn't feel the need to like necessarily force it too much there.
Yeah.
And like I said, maybe Seagal, maybe we might count some of the ones he did later with people like DMX. Who knows? Maybe we'll bring him back. But
yeah, maybe it'll be
not
a
lot
stretch.
going on
If this podcast goes long enough, we might have to, or well, you might have to expand the genre. This is your deal. It's up to you. But yeah, I'd I'm always here for some Seagal content. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I love it. And like I'm okay with like stretching a little bit, and also, but the thing is also, as I've said before on my Letterboxd, I've got like 140 something buddy cop films that I've tracked down.
Yeah,
So
that's
there's
awesome.
definitely a lot of material to go through. Cool. So I will just say as we go out, thanks everybody for listening. Chad, you want to plug your socials or anything?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not super active on social media, but I will say, I mean, if you want to follow me, I'm on, it's Chad Newsom, just all one word, Newsom without the E at the end on Instagram. I'll post some stories here and there. I like to post, I'll more often than not, my stories are just shows I've gone to see, and I just
I
like
like
to
that.
share like bands that I like. That's what I do on there a lot of times. But yeah.
Nice. Cool. So you can do that. Definitely check him out on Instagram. You can follow our show on Instagram. It's just Steak and Shake Pod, STAKE and Shake Pod. Also follow me. I'm _Strongbow on Letterboxd. I say that mostly if you want to just see what I've been watching lately, but also because I have a Stakeouts and Shakedowns list that, as I just mentioned, is like 140 plus buddy cop films that I'm hopefully going to cover at least a portion of on this podcast. So you can check me out there. Make sure to go and give us a rating, give us a review on wherever you're listening to us, whether that be, definitely iTunes. That helps a lot. If you give us a 5-star rating or you give us a nice review, that's going to help us a lot. And also, hey, tell a friend about this podcast. Word of mouth, I think, is the best way to help get new listeners. Maybe you know somebody who likes movies, especially if they like some really ridiculous stuff on this episode. Tell them about this podcast. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks so much, everybody. Chad, thanks for doing this.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. And until next time, y'all be cool. Right on.